In this episode, we discussed George Romero's 1985 film Day of the Dead. It's the third installment in his zombie trilogy. Come and find out all about Bub and the conflict between the soldiers and the scientists in a bunker. You don't want to miss it. John, it's daytime, John. It's daytime.
Gosh, what a long night.
The night passed and the dawn also has passed. We kind of slept in. It's officially day.
Oh, okay, yeah. No, I can see the sun. It's full in the sky at this point.
And that makes me think of 1985's Day of the Dead, George Romero's third installment in zombie flickdom.
Right. I would say his best work.
Would you?
Yeah, without any level of hesitation.
I feel like from what I read online, Dawn of the Dead felt to have more of a gut punch than Day did, but I like this movie quite a lot, actually.
Whoa.
Yeah.
First you wake me up, it's daytime, now you tell me you like a movie. I'm having trouble recovering from this.
Yeah, it's not a common event, but it's there.
Let's just get the plot line out of the way because we got a lot to cover.
Yeah, and our listeners know the movie, so
yeah, they certainly do. Let's see. Okay, Dawn of the Dead. There was night, there was dawn, there is now day, but no connection as it relates to characters. So situation remains common, which is zombies have taken over. The reasons as to how these dead became animated is yet known. And there is an installation of both military and scientists who are stationed underground trying to piece together, the scientists are trying to piece together the origin and find solution. The military is there to support this project. And from there, things kind of fall apart. Chaos ensues. Spoiler, some of the individuals, non-military, escape in a helicopter. Yeah.
Only three of the original 12.
Not good odds.
No. You kind of know who it is, though, that's going to make it. Like, it's the objectively good characters. This idea was inspired by a review that I read, but there's these three survivors who are reasonable and nice and civilized. And then on both sides of them, they're in the middle of a spectrum. They're good. And the other two groups, the scientists and the military folks, are uncivilized, perhaps in different ways. My point is that you kind of know who's gonna survive. If anybody's gonna survive, it's gonna be these three.
They had a certain flexibility to their character. They weren't monoliths in their ideology or viewpoints, and had some flexibility. Yeah, but I agree. You could kind of tell up front how this might play out.
And they're the ones at the beginning in the helicopter. Sarah, John, the Jamaican helicopter pilot, and McDermott, the radio guy. Mm-hmm. So they're the first ones we meet, along with Miguel, who doesn't survive, but they're the first ones we see and the last ones we see.
McDermott maybe as the weaker of the three, at least on screen time, and he kind of informed the viewer of the movie as to the suffocating situation in which they're in, because he's the communicator on the outside world. I don't know how much he actually influenced one thing beyond that, but maybe I'm underestimating his play in the movie.
No, I think you're right. And there's a scene where everybody's got their guns drawn and most military guys are threatening to kill everyone now and then throughout the whole movie. But John, the Jamaican guy, cannot be killed because he's the only one who can operate the helicopter. And I think the same applies to McDermott. He's the only one who knows how to operate the radios and potentially make contact with other groups or the U.S. military. So he's kind of unkillable too, but everybody else is expendable.
These are the lifelines, in a sense. The hope that Washington somehow gets in touch with them and comes to discover and save them. John, the helicopter pilot, can get them out of the situation by flying them away. And maybe on an existential level, the female has the ability to reproduce and move the species into the future.
Yeah, and her sexuality is highlighted in various ways throughout the film. She's in a love relationship with Miguel, even though there's no real intimacy that's ever exhibited on the screen. Miguel is kind of having a nervous breakdown throughout the whole movie. And not only that relationship, but also all the soldiers say sort of rapey things to her and crude sexual comments. So yeah, her femininity and her ability to continue the species or any of that is certainly highlighted often.
A couple of things I picked up from Dr. Logan, who is the head scientist.
AKA Frankenstein?
Yes, he's also referred to as such. Maybe about a third of the way into the movie, you can hear him mumbling into a microphone. Some things he said about the zombies, such as that, typically speaking, the ones that are kind of older, that might be coming back to life after being dead for a while, he estimates can last around 3 to 4 years. He estimates that the ones that have recently died could have a lifespan of about 10 to 12 years. He was estimating it based on the decay of the brain, because all the lobes essentially stop serving a function within a zombie. And the R complex is what remains and animates the beast. That's what he's suggesting, is that after a certain amount of time, the brain decays to the point at which the R complex becomes compromised.
Yeah, he calls it the bit of prehistoric jelly. Not jello, but jelly.
Right. And so then this is kind of just the background. On a scientific scale, and I'm going to kind of discount this. Obviously, I'll play into the plotline as it states, but I mean, human biology and the product of meat that decays, I think that's much faster than 10 to 12 years. Am I off on this? Am I speculating? Am I stepping beyond my bounds here?
Are you asking me to correct you on the speed at which our R complex, our bit of prehistoric jelly, decays?
Yeah, that's what I'm asking. I'm saying if I take a brain and I just put it out there and I leave it on a shelf, how long will it take for it to decay? 10 to 12 years?
You're not even going to put it in the fridge or like wrap it in saran wrap?
It should actually, for a true case scenarios, it should remain in the skull, actually, and be subjected to the weathering of being outside. Unless, I guess, you have an indoor zombie with central air. Maybe that would make it last longer.
Or you leave your zombie brain out in the sun for a certain amount of time each day?
I would imagine that an arid climate actually might do better than a tropical climate.
Well, they are in Florida, which is, I guess, wet tropical. I don't think that they were talking about decay in that sense. I think they were talking about the way the zombie infection is a decaying infection. It's an infection that eats away at the brain, and so the process or the speed of that virus maybe is the way to think of it. Eats away at all your advanced brain development first, all the parts that make us uniquely human, and then only at the end of the decay cycle does it eat away at that little bit of prehistoric jelly. So I guess ultimately all these zombies will rot away. I did not notice the point where they were talking about time spans. So I'm not sure what you're trying to say about new versus recently dead, but all the zombies are doomed in that sense to ultimately have the virus eat away all of their brains and just fall over.
To me, that feels there's a sense of optimism there, although you're kind of adding more zombies to the mix as time goes on. There's a flashpoint, I think, where a large portion of the dead or recently dead are infected, and that'll last at most up until about 10, 12 years. And then there'll be a fairly sharp decline as fewer and fewer people are infected, kind of tails off there. So I don't know. A true solution may be just wait around for 25 years. It's kind of a long time, but it is a solution. It is a conclusion, I would say, to the problem.
This is one of the big questions I had about the movie is you got the military and you got the scientists. They've struck some sort of bargain, seemingly. The military doesn't really want to expend the resources to maintain the scientific effort. For example, the soldiers have to corral zombie test subjects, which is dangerous, and defend the facility, which they seem to be losing men doing that as well. So I don't know what the military wants. What's their side of the bargain? What are they going to get from the scientific research?
The military is serving the greater good of the scientific endeavor, and that was the assignment that was provided to them from Washington, as it sounds.
Hmm.
So they're an instrument for the scientists to maintain their study. I don't think they have a secondary objective until later when Major Cooper dies. And from there, Captain Rhodes takes over. And it feels like this is a speculative point, is when Major Cooper was alive, which is part of the movie we didn't see, it feels like there's maybe of a teaming aspect, maybe a more shared responsibility as to what's going on, maybe even that the military is more subservient to the overall goal that was assigned, the assumption of it being a scientific project. And then Rhodes is here just kind of witnessing it, kind of playing in the background, kind of festering in his distaste for how these things are moving along. And then when Major Cooper dies, Rhodes takes over and really takes over, kind of with an iron fist.
Yeah, he's on edge, and ostensibly because he cares about his men and doesn't want more of them to die. But yeah, he's a violent, crude, racist, sexist bully, and the other soldiers are as well. Yeah, I'm still not clear what the scientists are aiming to do. Are they trying to find a vaccine of sorts to protect the remnants of humanity from further zombie infection, or are they? I felt like there were two different groups of scientists. There was Logan, who's trying to teach Bub and the other zombies how to behave and act civilly, and I felt like the other scientists thought that his goals were unrealistic. But I wasn't sure what the other scientists, second half of the scientists, were trying to focus on.
Right. So it's two schools, yeah. So Dr. Logan was trying to do what they described as a conditional and domesticated approach under what Sarah titled neurophysical. It was the neurophysical approach. And then Sarah was working on a different approach, which was around reversing the process, eradicating the problem, trying to figure out what's making it happen to begin with. Dr. Logan has kind of accepted that this is something that we won't be able to solve in a reversing type process where we can just prevent it from happening into the future and make all the animated zombies just through chemical agent stop animating themselves. He's kind of come to the conclusion that that's not even possible. And he's thinking, well, behaviorally, what can we do differently? Which I kind of sympathize with Rhodes here. That is not a good idea. It's just not scalable. You can't scale behavioral change across what Dr. Logan suggested was 400,000 to 1 to condition zombies to stop wanting to eat us.
Yeah, I think that's clearly impractical. And I feel like it's kind of a weakness in the movie that Logan, who is otherwise so intelligent, doesn't recognize the shortcomings of his own method of dealing with the zombie outbreak. Like, he seems to spiral away into this vortex of pure research. Like, I feel like he's got this relationship with Bub and maybe 2 or 3 other zombies that he's trying to civilize and domesticate. And that work taps into some kind of personal neuroses that he has. Did you get that same impression? Like, he talks a lot about his mother and sort of breaks eye contact and looks away wistfully about civility being the only thing that separates us from the animals. And Logan seems to be spiraling off into some personal psychological issues that he's working through.
Yeah, there was a almost like a Thomas Hobbes type thing going on here, where man is a beast that needs to be managed by his own devices. He will be destructive, something along those lines. And so, yeah, Dr. Logan is saying something along civility must be rewarded. If it's not rewarded, well, then there's no use for it. So this idea that if you don't reward civility, it's not something that naturally comes to people, or that without it, then there's chaos. So we have to make sure civility is in place. And so maybe there is a kind of a complex that he's having where he's stretching so far into that because he's detached, and maybe he came to the conclusion that there wasn't a solution chemically to solve the problem. And so he kind of went off on his own sort of philosophical review of this. He's like saying, yeah, I'm obviously placing all this on the character without him articulating it. This is untenable as a solution to solve the problem. It's not reversible. I have a value that says civility is the most important thing about humans, and that's just a quality that's required for society. And so I'll just kind of laser focus on that and apply it to zombies. But I know that that's not a good approach, but that's how I'm going to spend my time. So I feel like I'm being productive, because the idea that this isn't reversible and we're all doomed is too overwhelming for me. So I have to kind of displace this into a project that I feel has some level of solution, even if I know it's not a real solution.
But beyond that, isn't there a scene where I think it's Sarah and somebody else discover audio recordings that Logan has made, and he in those audio tapes he's just ranting about, he's like talking to his mother and talking to his father as he's doing these experiments. Did you remember that scene?
I do remember that scene. They were kind of poking through his lab, and I thought it was difficult to say exactly what was going on there, but I couldn't tell if he was talking to zombies about shaping their behavior and being like, hey, you got to be good here. You can't be bad. And almost approaching them like juveniles with this civility must be rewarded thing. But yeah, it could have been him off in some psychosis, sort of thinking he's talking to his mother or his dad or something. But I didn't get a good sense of that as to what was on the recording.
Okay. Yeah, I'm not sure, but I think that Logan's gone mad, and because there's a scene where he is talking to Rhodes, I think, and Rhodes' proposal is just to shoot all the zombies, and Logan is very sensible of the limitations of that approach because we don't have enough bullets. So Logan is aware that there's too many, and yet he persists in this behavioral research, knowing that that's not going to work either because there's too many. So I think that he's gone mad, and he's doing his research is somehow enabling him to process some issues he's got with the way he was raised, and maybe the soldiers are, as sort of bullies, are triggering some repressed stuff in him, and this whole lab and this whole bunker is just a place where he's working out all these psychological issues in sort of a deranged state.
Yeah, I would agree with that. In fact, that's why I'm sympathetic to Rhodes. He's witnessing this. He's not a perfect tool by any measure, but he's witnessing this and seeing that this is not a tenable solution, that they're wasting time, that Dr. Logan has taken over the research, and if you just play it out for the next 3-4 months, next 6 months, next 6 years, that the solution is not going to produce. So Rhodes is like, we need to refocus here. We need to have some results, because if I play this out any further, the forecast suggests my men are dying faster than I could ever replace them because they're not replaceable. The research is not going to play out in any way that's meaningful or effective. So we need to either come to a solution, which no one seems to be able to head this decision, so I will take this responsibility, or we need to get out of here. And so Captain Rhodes is not a pleasurable person. I think he's demonized. The things that you said about him being a racist, being a sexist, being misogynist, being a distasteful human being, totally agree. But he does have a point.
Yeah. And just one more point on Logan's insanity. He seems, and maybe the nickname of Frankenstein is relevant here. He feeds the zombies that he's treating on the soldiers. The soldiers that have recently died, he seems to sneak in and capture their bodies. And he did this with the major who had died, Major Cooper. He had switched the bodies and done operations on Major Cooper, and there's a couple other soldiers that he either feeds to his zombie subjects or performs operations on. So yeah, the Frankenstein element is maybe meant to do something for his character, but also if he's insane and sort of getting back at all the bullies and authority figures that warped his development, maybe the sneaky disrespect of the soldiers remains as a way that he's exercising more of that animus.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that, because he's even getting messages from Sarah, who is his coworker, Sarah's saying, we've concluded these things months ago. we know that the R complex is last to go. We know that there is some level of shaping we could do, but this is not a solution that we can go with. And so from all sides, both of his peers, both of the authority figures, the military, they're basically saying, hey, Dr. Logan, this isn't a good way to go. Kind of surprised that he has so much power over the research, because I didn't know this because it wasn't highlighted, but Sarah's a doctor too. Not a doctor of medicine, but a doctor of science. Like she has a PhD.
I have a quote here about Logan. This is from the one and only Roger Ebert. He says, the chief researcher is a demented butcher with blood-stained clothes whose idea of science is to teach a zombie named Bub to operate a Sony Walkman. Meanwhile, the head of the military contingent turns into a violent little dictator who establishes martial law and threatens to end the experiments. His opponent is a spunky woman scientist, and as they shout angry accusations at each other, the real drama in the film gets lost. In the earlier films, he's talking about Dawn of the Dead and Night of the Living Dead. In the earlier films, we really identified with the small cadre of surviving humans. They were seen as positive characters, and we cared about them. This time, the humans are mostly unpleasant, violent, insane, or so noble that we can predict with utter certainty that they will survive.
Wow.
So,
yeah. Okay.
He finds fault with the characters and notes the lack of sympathy that we feel with this cadre of survivors relative to Dawn or Night.
Yeah, and I think that with Night and Dawn, you could play with some of the discoverable elements, but when you got to Day, I think what I found pleasurable about it was they were moving more into some level of certainty. They're moving more into the practicality of what we do now, or what is a possible solution, as opposed to before it was, what's happening to us? I don't know. This is goofy. I don't like it. What a terrifying situation. But there wasn't a payoff as to, okay, well, what can we really do about this?
Mm-hmm.
And so with Day approaching that, I appreciate, because you have to hit a more level of substance and choice that comes into play with this movie, that's why I find it more interesting, because the consequences and the discussions are heavier than just, where do we stay tonight? How are we gonna batten down the mall? You know, they don't even have an ability in Dawn to, and we're kind of spilling over. They don't even have an ability in Dawn to solve any problems. Mm-hmm. They're just on the run. And I don't know, it's just not as satisfying because it doesn't take a deep enough review of the situation at hand.
Yeah, and I think the scene Day opens with the scene where Sarah is just in this windowless room, sort of sleeping on the floor. And the only thing you see on the wall is a calendar, and she's marked off presumably months and months and months, slowly crossing out each day with a black Sharpie. And the movie ends with that as well. Once they've escaped to the island paradise, she does the same thing. So I think that calendar opening and closing of the movie highlights the point you're making, that this movie is about the long term and what we do, what's the ultimate solution to this, and what do we do with the rest of our lives, rather than just kind of surviving the next night. I have a question. I want to talk about Miguel.
Okay.
He's a sensitive lad. He's a soldier. Mm-hmm. He's Sarah's love interest, and he has a nervous breakdown pretty much from the beginning of the movie, I would say. He's losing it. He needs to rest. He needs time off. Sarah tranquilizes him. Then, for unexplained reasons, I feel like, later in the movie, he gets bit by a zombie. Sarah amputates his arm, which seems to work. He doesn't get infected. And then, for some reason, in his drugged out state, he stumbles out of the facility, opens the gate, lets all the horde of zombies in, and then lays down on the, whatever you call it, descending platform thing that's the entrance to the bunker, allows himself to be eaten, and just as he's about to transform into a zombie himself, presses the button that makes the platform descend, thereby dooming all of his fellow soldiers, and presumably also Sarah and anyone in the group that he would consider a friend, to a zombie horde and death.
Yeah, after his life was saved by them. Yeah, it's terrible.
So was he in some half zombie, half human state where he like sympathized with the zombies and because he was half infected? I got the impression, no, that he was fully human, that the amputation had stopped the spread of the zombie infection, and that he was fully, he gets eaten on the platform by the zombies, and they don't eat themselves, other zombies. So he was
right,
not,
that's true.
he was not zombie at that point. So why did he, that's my ultimate question, why did he doom his fellow soldiers and also Sarah to this?
Well, no good deed goes unpunished, Brian.
Is that your answer?
No. Yeah, I found that confusing too. At first I was like, what a jerk. It's
Just
it's such
a moment of being a jerk.
Yeah. It felt oddly selfish and selfless because he basically sacrificed and threatened the group of people who he had been living with and being supported by and saved by, yet he also sacrifices himself. So it's not like he's getting anything out of it. So yeah, it's a confusing element for sure.
Yeah. I have a theory. I have a theory that that Miguel, this is like the larger message of the movie, I feel like Romero in this film, yeah, he's talking about society. If Night of the Living Dead was about racism and working together with individuals in an confined area where individuals who society usually separates us from, the major theme of that movie, I think, is racism. And then Dawn of the Dead is about consumerism and sort of the banality of our everyday lives and just puttering around a mall and making ourselves happy with buying things in the mall. Then this one, I would say, is about just humanity being too awful to be worth saving. The zombies that Logan is working with, in particular Bub, are very sympathetic. They're like children. They struggle with their emotions, but they're trying to do the right thing. They're trying to learn. They're cooperative. There's a sense in which they're more civil than at least any of the soldiers are. The soldiers are violent and rude and shouting the whole time and sexist and racist and just the worst possible people. They represent all that is the worst about humanity. And then the zombies, on the other hand, are these sort of childish, sympathetic, learning, developing creatures. So in a way, they have more potential to be human than the actual humans do. So I like this idea that Romero's trying to say that society is ruined, humanity is ruined. The three that escape, Sarah and McDermott and John, fly off to an island to start over. And there's another scene where Sarah is shown a little private paradise that Billy and John have set up. They've kind of got like plastic lawn chairs and a little bunch of fake grass, and they've got music going, and it's in an area where presumably none of the other soldiers know about. So it's kind of their little Garden of Eden, so to speak. And when Sarah is taken there, John tells her that he has discovered in this bunker all these records that the U.S. military had kept of, traffic accidents and volcanic eruptions and how many people died in this earthquake and how many murders there were in here and so on and so forth. So it's like a record of all of all the bad things that humanity has done and that have happened to humanity. So it's kind of like there's just all these elements of that myth, I would say, of the ruined humans are created, were found to be irredeemably sinful, and the gods have to destroy everything to start humanity over again. And I like the idea of Miguel's act playing into that. He has to be the agent by which the ultimate destruction of humanity is achieved, and then the three virtuous ones do get to escape and potentially start over with a woman among them on this island paradise.
All right, yeah. So Miguel goes and floods the tunnels, so to speak, and maybe even with Miguel, how he, just to play even further into this, considering that there doesn't seem to be a passionate relationship between Miguel and Sarah, you think Sarah's a virgin? The Virgin Mary?
Then Miguel would be who? Miguel is some kind of angel of death. He's the agent of humanity's destruction.
Yeah, no, I like that. It's a little more sophisticated than no good deed goes unpunished, which is not really a saying that I believe in or feel is. It's kind of a, when people say that, I find that so off-putting as something to say. But this does kind of speak a little bit to, in previous episodes, talking around interpretation of movies and how one can interpret things many different ways. There's still quality to which interpretation might be of more substance than the others. So there's still like a hierarchy amongst the possibilities of what, in this case, George Romero is trying to say in Dawn of the Dead. But, just across different interpretations in general. There's good ones, there's bad ones, mediocre ones. And actually, in thinking of previous episodes as well, I want to, reflect back on Link, 1986. Remember that movie?
How could I forget it?
Well, in that episode, I believe I suggested that if I trained a monkey for a series of generations long enough, that I could get a monkey to do something, which I don't recall what.
You had a whole classroom of monkeys, and you were... Yeah, I don't remember what the expected outcome was, but I think it was broadly they would become more... They would be able to codify laws and something like us.
I want to take that back. Partly because of, kind of what this movie is kind of speaking of, is that the monkey doesn't have the platform to build that type of structure on. The areas of the brain just aren't there. And so you can have a lot of exposure to it. You can have some level of capacity of learning, some replication of behavior, but it's just that the structure of the brain is not present enough to capture those more complex ideas. And I think that this movie's kind of playing into that as well, Day of the Dead, where the decaying process of the prefrontal lobe and other areas of the brain that gives complexity to man is still barely accessible. Dr. Logan thinks that he can somehow leverage this to overcome the problems that society is seeing with the zombies. But ultimately speaking, once it decays to the point that that's offline, it's just not possible. And then same thing with primates. There's a certain capacity, but the structure just isn't there for the complexity of more, skills that would be required from monkeys to overtake mankind.
That's a relief to know.
Yeah, so I'm sure you can sleep better. That's probably why you were up late last night. Yeah. We slept till this afternoon.
I thought I heard chimpanzees howling.
I heard them reading Shakespeare, and I was like, holy shit.
I wanted to mention the gore effects of this movie were very well done. Not only did they look... Like there's that one scene in particular where Sarah is in Logan's laboratory. And it's kind of a throwaway scene. It doesn't really mean much, but she's about to leave. And then this zombie lying on a gurney sits up and reaches out for her. And then all of its insides just slop onto the floor. And that was just really well done. And all the creative ways that the soldiers are ripped to bits. Some people are just physically ripped in half. Another guy is like, his eyeball is the focus of the tension. And the zombie sort of starts with the eyeball and the eyeball socket. And then eventually just rips his whole head in half. It's just like really gory, but, sort of obviously like, material gore. It's not computer generated, but also just the creative ways that people were dismembered was really creative, and so sort of two points in the gore favor.
The practical effects were, some of the best I've seen.
Mm-hmm.
I think even at their worst, practical effects get a pass over some of the early CGI stuff that is embarrassingly awkward in its kind of show of blood or trying to digitally enter into gore. That's definitely true. It's an artifact that is definitely worth mentioning.
Yeah, and the very first scene where the helicopters landed in the city and they're trying to raise any human survivors, and that one zombie walks out with like his entire jaw missing, and you just see his tongue and all the way down to the tongue root just sort of lolling around. And then that other scene where the zombies are stirred up by the megaphone and they come lurching out of like a library, and then this random alligator just comes out with them. Just like that was so creative and so great.
Yeah. Well, I think that with the last piece here, maybe some discussion around zombie ethics.
Mm, wow.
Yeah.
Is that a field that? Oh,
It's a field of study
wow.
that we're kind of stepping into here. Ethics is a strange thing, actually. And this, I think, kind of straddles almost in the animal field of ethics as to what should one do with zombies? Do zombies have rights? Should how should we treat the zombie?
Mm.
And as we treat the zombie, as far as not just treating it like with medical intervention, but how do we conduct ourselves amongst zombies, kind of a thing?
Yeah, that's a big question. I fail to see the relevance of it outside of zombie movies. However,
Yeah, that's true. Well, I kind of consider it around animals too, animals that are of a predator nature. In this movie, I think that there was a suggestion that zombies were moving in regard to maybe with Bub, it introduces this concept that zombies have a little person inside them, that there's still something operating within them that might be your sister or your mother or your neighbor. And so then it's okay, well, do I have a responsibility to this zombie? Because some would say zombies are just zombies. That person that represents physically as you see them as someone you remember, but that person is gone. It's just a corpse walking. But Bub in this movie suggests otherwise. There's something that's been conjured out of him that has shown his possible service in the military. It's not just a repeatable behavior like playing a Walkman or listening to a Walkman. He's responding in ways that are socially or life experience that he's displaying to others. So there is something still there. Do we have a responsibility to treat zombies in any particular way?
yeah, I mean, I think there's thinking of Dawn of the Dead where Flyboy, I forget his actual name, but the helicopter pilot in that movie gets bitten, and the time it takes for him to decay is very long, and the decaying is very slow, and then eventually they just have to shoot him, right? So
Just as an interruption, that wasn't Flyboy. Flyboy was the guy who's flying the helicopter. That was Roger, the white guy who got bit on the leg as he was climbing through.
Oh, right. Flyboy is the other guy. Okay, never mind. Yeah,
Yeah.
I can think. Yeah. So, yeah, I feel like Dawn of the Dead played with that idea of a friend in this case being bitten. And at what point do we accept the fact that our friend is no longer in there? It's now a zombie who's a danger to us. So, but I didn't really feel like this movie got into that too much. Like the only character who gets bitten is Miguel, and they quickly amputate and cauterize him. So it doesn't really explore that former friend or former loved one slowly changing into a zombie. But definitely with Bub, like, I don't know how long it took in the lab for Logan to get him to that point where he was not attacking and behaving in ways that are more like his former human self. I think for me, Bub's character seems more human than the soldiers do, and also maybe more human than the scientists. At least Logan does as well. So yeah, I think this movie isn't really playing with former friends becoming zombies, but more like who's the more human. It's inverting the definition of humanity. The zombies they're far from being human, but in certain ways they're more civilized than the humans are.
Right. That's an interesting thing too, because if one is defining human as Bub, who displayed seemingly some level of sympathy, some level of emotion, I see how those are associated as human-like qualities, and as you're discussing it as more human, or that he displayed human qualities better than the humans, that statement, it's discounting that hatred, violence, power struggles aren't human. And I would say that they're all in the same, those are all in the same platform. And when someone acts in a way that's controlling or brutalizing, I would say they are also acting equally human.
Yeah, I mean, I think Logan describes he defines civility. I think he equates civility with humanity. And he says essentially that if we don't reward good behavior, it won't happen. So civility is the behavior we want. We, as a team of humans, say raising a child, we have to reward the child for being civil. Otherwise, humanity will no longer continue to be civil. And so the human act is a group of people. Humanity is a verb, a group of people treating a member of the group with a mechanism that rewards civility. And when that procedure doesn't happen, then there's no more humanity. And so that's not happening in the bunker. The only thing happening in the bunker is aggression and panic and anxiety and mental breakdown and racism and sexism. The only place humanity is happening is in Logan's little laboratory with Bub.
I think this kind of pushes into that Thomas Hobbes idea that humans by nature are animalistic, and you have to actually cast that out of them, and that they need to be cleansed by society or bringing in a sense of civility, because if that intervention isn't placed on them, then they would then grow to be destructive and unruly and robbing and raping and such. In that review of it, then all those negative qualities might be thought of as more human-like. And once those are suppressed, then I become more social-like, which is maybe less human in a way.
Yeah.
You know, because I have to be cleansed of these ideas of raping and pillaging, and society can only do that. So naturally, I have a biological posture into those types of behaviors, or I have a predisposition to them. So that might be, I think I'm being unnecessary. I wouldn't say unnecessarily combative, but I'm sort of just making a differentiation with language as to what is human. Is being control hungry and exploitation, is that a human quality that is representative of how a human is, and that it needs to be cleansed and removed? And then once you do that through civility, now I've become, I don't know, uber human or more human or a cleaner type of human.
Yeah. The process of brain decay leads to just kind of stimulus response behavior. So the zombies that Logan is working with are not learning from social cues, and they're not learning from through observing the behavior of other humans and then mimicking that behavior. The zombies are not learning civility through empathy and projecting themselves into the shoes of others and imagining how they would like to be treated. They don't have that brain capacity because of the zombie virus. So the only thing the zombies have to work with is that stimulus response, basic, primordial reptile part of the brain.
Mm-hmm.
And so Logan's the futility of his efforts to teach Bub, who has a non-human brain, teaching Bub how to be human, I think might be noteworthy, because it ultimately is doomed to fail because it just takes so long to get through to one zombie, but also the way that he's teaching it through just reward and stimulus response. That's not how we really learn to be human and civil. We learn through that way, but also through projection and empathy and imagination and literature and all that as well.
For the ethical consideration as to if we should or shouldn't kill a zombie on sight, I would side with we should kill a zombie on sight without hesitation. And it's not so much whether they possess human-like qualities, it's because we are a requirement in their existential lifespan. We are there to be fed upon. We are there. The only way they can reproduce is to kill us or to infect us. And so if a zombie wants to continue to exist into the future, they must use us as a resource. And if that's the case, then we as a human have an existential conflict. We would then be required to kill them just as much as they would be required to eat us, because that's the ultimate goal. I might be able to look at a zombie far away and appreciate the fact that they're upright and think, oh, wow, okay, maybe my friend is still in there, and maybe he is. But at the end of the day, that object and that the existential requirement is to kill me. And so if that's the case, then I have permission, or maybe even a requirement, to shoot that zombie immediately, because if not, then my existence then has become secondary.
Yeah, and I think the zombie movies make no qualms about. I don't think the audience feels any sense that they've witnessed a crime or, a mass killing. In the case of a horde of zombies, the audience interprets the murdering done by the survivors as justified, like you said, because otherwise they'll get overrun and become zombies themselves. So I think there's an inhumanity about zombies that we accept that they can be massacred in large groups, and we don't even bat an eye about it. But at the same time, a lot of movies play with that individual one-on-one decision to eliminate a former friend who is now a zombie. So sort of that old saying that one person's death is a tragedy, but the death of a million is a statistic. Maybe we're just hardwired ethically to feel an individual's death as more tragic than a large number of deaths.
And my last point on this, and maybe this is common knowledge, and is that if we go back to early man, my guess is that any near species or upright monkey who was close to us in their capacities, that we murdered them as quickly, or let's just say eventually, in that same light. There is an existential overlap here, and there's a high level of competition. So my guess is that a long, long time ago, there were other sister species who were on the same track as we were, and we just probably murdered most of them. As they encroached on our resource, there was an existential threat, and then we said, well, these guys seem fine. We don't have a problem with them personally, but if we want to continue to exist, we're going to have to kill these guys. And so all these subhumans or near humans, as we grew up or evolved near them, we just eliminated them all, and that's kind of where we're at now.
Why do you think we killed them? Did we recognize their long-term competitive threat for our eventual world dominance?
I think when the resources became scarce, there was a realization then, because in order for me to exist, I have to eliminate this near species. And so then up until that point, if resources were plentiful, then I wouldn't have had such a consideration. And that's why I was kind of thinking about the animal piece, where there's an animal ethic of you don't need to shoot a lion because a lion is just doing its own thing. But if a lion's main source of food and its requirement for replication was human, then we would probably have killed lions in totality a while ago. So
we're ethically wired to accept the killings of competitors. You hear that? You hear that, podcast competitors? We're coming for you on Spotify.
That's right. Spotify's only allowed one podcast slot.
Yeah.
We're throwing elbows.
Everyone else is a threat to our something.
Anyways.
Well, that's your first lesson in zombie ethics, everybody.
Right. Yeah. 101. It's a pass-fail class in that. Yeah.
I'm gonna audit this one. I'm gonna change my major, maybe. Yeah. John, last point from me. There was a Stephen King teaser in this movie. Did you pick up on it?
I did not.
I feel like no movie can pass us by without Stephen King rearing his authorial head at us.
Mm-hmm.
The book that Bub is given along with the razor blade and the toothbrush is
Salem's Lot.
I thought it might be symbolic, so I Googled it, and it was a Stephen King book, and apparently George Romero thought it was great.
Oh, George liked that book a lot?
I think that's what I read.
Yeah. No, you're right. I did see that book, Salem's Lot, but I didn't read the book. It's about vampires.
Yeah, it didn't seem to, just from what I read on Wikipedia, the book didn't seem to have anything similar to the themes of the movie, but maybe I made up that thing about George Romero liking it, but maybe I didn't. I don't know. But yeah, it came out in 75. In two separate interviews I'm reading from Wikipedia, King said that of all his books, Salem Lot was his favorite. Okay, so no, it wasn't George Romero. Stephen King loved this book that he wrote. So that's really useful information.
Oh, okay. Well, that's cool. Yeah. There's a movie, Salem's Lot.
Have we seen it?
No, we haven't.
But we're gonna watch it, aren't we?
Eventually, yeah.
Yeah. There's no Into These Hills.
I guess that about wraps it up.
Yeah. I enjoyed our talk and also the movie.
It's been a pleasure, and we'll take this next turn and see where that takes us.
All right. Sounds good.